Hello and welcome to Healing Hands Ministries Open Book Series. I'm Pastor Stevens, your facilitator. We look at the Bible from a contextual point of view. We try and understand seriously the author's intent, and we focus our attention on the original audience that received the letter, received the document, and then we try to grapple with its implications and reapplication for contemporary living. Thank you so much for joining us. Grab your Bible now and sit back and let's look at some insights from the biblical text. Let's study.
So how's everybody doing? I trust, as usual, that your day has been a brilliant day in the Lord. It's been beautiful. The rains yesterday left us here in Middle Georgia with a nice sunny day today. Hot, but sunny. Let's look. Here, we've been looking at interesting movement in Paul's epistle to the Ephesians, but not uncommon to his penmanship. Typically, Paul will open the letter with doctrinal teachings, and at some point in the letter, he will make a shift and go from doctrinal teachings to application, practical teachings. Practical application, if you will. So he's done that in this letter, Ephesians, starting at the 4th chapter. So from 4:1 to 6:20, we're looking at practical application of the Christian life to those doctrines he's taught prior to chapter 4, 1 through 3, as a matter of fact. Okay, we've done much with a walkthrough the idea of walking in the Lord. Christian behavior patterns. You remember we were dealing with that, where from verse, kind of a takeoff from verse 17, the apostle had been contrasting the old life with the new life without descending to any particulars. And so in this section, he jumps in now and he starts really focusing on how to live the Christian life, looking at Christian life patterns. This is just what we do. This is the way we roll. This is the way we live. This is the way we act and move and have our being. Listen, check me out. Listen, one of the things about being Christian that we celebrate and we have the advantage of is that we don't have to do a lot of decision making. We just have to be obedient to decisions already made. The truths have been tried and tested and laid before us. Christ has demonstrated, illustrated, and now leaves the teachings to the apostles, and they brought them to us. And so we just follow the leader. That's what we do. We follow Christ. Now, after looking at the Christian behavior patterns, he does something interesting, and we've been picking up on that. We opened this up last week, where he moves from living in the life, what was that? Let me see, what was that? I can't remember the Christian behavior pattern thing. I think it was, let's see, let me make sure I got this right. Pulling off the old garment, putting on the new garment, the new behavior, and now we are in section 5:3 through 20, where Paul has epitomized the Christian behavior and Christian behavior patterns as a life of love. Yeah, that's what I was trying to remember. A life of love. That was the movement that we were dealing with 4:1 through 5:2. A life of love. And then he moves. Now he turns to another theme and opens up the next section of the letter. Live as children of light. Talking to the Gentiles. And remember now, this is basically a Gentile church. There's some Jews there, but it's heavily Gentile. And they come from this really terrible, structured community. Pagan-minded, sexual immorality, impurities of all kinds, fertility practices, all kinds, just a conglomerate of a strange, passion, hedonistic, porneia kind of consciousness. We talked about this last week, okay? Well, he's saying to the Gentiles here at this point that they need to live as children of light. But they can only do that. It's only made possible if they're in the Lord, because He and He only is the light of the world, the true light of the world. So because Christ is the true light of the world, and those of us who are in Christ can live as children of light. And that's His basic focus here as He walks into verses 3 moving forward. The apostle begins verse 3. We've gone over this. We're just going to run through till we get where we're going. The apostle begins by speaking about the effect of light in a life of purity. He resumes the prohibitives that he mentioned back at 4:26 through 31, where he was talking about. Let me get a reference down. Don't be angry and sin not, and let not the sun go down on your wrath. You remember those teachings? Well, he's expanding on those teachings in the next from 3 to 3 moving forward. He talks about, and this is interesting. He says there is about our pattern of behavior, living as the light, living as children of the light. Certain things we just don't do. Certain things just don't belong to our way of talk, our way of behavior, the way we think about things. And it's very challenging because, it's just very challenging when you listen to it. When you listen to certain things he thinks are just obscene and silly and vulgar talk. He thinks that's just so unbecoming to, that dims the light. Let's put it that way. It dims the light. That it doesn't give us as believers the impact on the world that Jesus Christ has for us in His light. Okay, so if we're walking in His light, or if we are in the life of Jesus, then we have His light. So he basically reasons that to the Gentiles that what they're accustomed to seeing and accustomed to doing, now they're converted. He's saying to them very clearly, this is not the way we behave. He says in verse 4, it's entirely out of place. Obscene language, behavior, silliness. So it starts to really make you think about the way we do Christianity in contemporary mode. We do whatever we want to do. Lord forgive me. We're constantly hovering over a misuse of the idea of repentance. The flesh is weak. The spirit ain't with man always. We have some succinct justifications for not being in that guise, not being in that mold. It's interesting. Be sure of this, that no sexual, immoral, or impure person, or one who is greedy, and I think I explained it to you last week, how this is about porneia, the passion, feeding the self, getting your pleasure, his hedonism. And anything that feeds the self and pleases the self can be subject to greed. Not just food, but certainly food. Money, sex, power, all of this. We get, Paul is the guy who teaches, do all things in moderation. He same guy. Well, of course, so he would have a corresponding teaching on greed. And that's why you notice in the opening of this section, he includes greed as one of the immoral behaviors that just does not belong to the believer. Now, I can stop there and say some things. You know I can, don't you? But see, we excuse, and I will say this, as contemporary believers, we have a tendency to secularize, hear me, secularize our consciousness of sin in the church. So that, obesity is not really a sin. She just big bone, and she like to eat and everything, and so you could be 900 pounds giving your testimony about how much you love the Lord. Okay, look at look. You see it? See, that's something that we just don't talk about. You know, or John Boy, he's a good giver. He's a good giver, and he ain't nothing but money. And because he got money, he want more money and money and more money, money and more money. But that's not bad as young man over there who seems to be a little got a little sugar in his tank. This church folk, we can go there. That's what Paul is talking about. That doesn't belong to us. That's not how we move. It's not who we are. All that'll preach all by itself. Somebody that really understands what Paul is trying to say and really want to help people from becoming adulterous in their faith expression, because you can become an idolater and be serious about your Christ. You like to sing. You got a good voice. But can't nobody else sing but you. You just greedy you like that attention. You want them to say, go ahead. You feeding what pleases you. And it's disguised in this wonderful, wonderful relationship that you do not have. You just like what happens when you go to church. Like, Lou Phoebe, that girl knows she can sing. You singing today? I don't know. Then you go feeding. You see it all. If you've been in church as long as Stevens has been in church, you've seen it all. But anyway, that's where we ended last time, and with the powerful statement that this is all about a loss of inheritance in the kingdom of Christ and of God. A loss of inheritance, something that was somebody died and left you something, and you could lose it because of your personal passions and desires that have caused you to become immoral and greedy. Paul goes on to make an assertion that I was paying attention to today, and it just kind of caught me off guard. I mentioned it, and I think I might have mentioned it last week, but I want to hit it again because I think I may have walked by something of significance as we begin to unravel this whole idea of walking in the light of the Lord, of living living life as children of light. Yeah, children of life. Light. It's hard to remember the thing. Children of light. Yeah. Okay. Let's read a little bit. Let no one deceive you with empty words. For because of these things, the wrath of God comes on those who are disobedient. Therefore, do not be associated with them. For once you were darkness, but now in the Lord you are light. Walk as children of light. For the fruit of the light is found in all that is good and right and true. Okay, now we broke open some of this last week, but I want to go back and show you something that I should have dropped anchor and really brought emphasis. Notice verse 6, let no one deceive you with empty words. Now, when you get to verse 6, there were those in his day, that's why he was writing, what prompted him to say that to these people, there were those in his day, just as there are those in our times, who would protest that the Christian standards are a little bit too demanding. I mean, how can, what, you really, you can't even laugh? I'm such a joke, so I like to laugh. I love laughing. I'll find a laugh anywhere. And Paul said that's just, that's not cool. And it's, when you stop and think about it, you're laughing at somebody else's expense. You just happen to think that right there is funny. And you just evening at the Apollo, you just one old comedian. And there you go, and everybody just laughing because of what you saying. And you're supposed to be the rabbi. You're supposed to be the great teacher. Yeah, that thing got at me, boy. It got at me bad. As often as I taught it, I've managed to find a way around it somehow, but I couldn't. I was reading, I was going, yeah, okay. So now check this out. In this focus, in verse 6, Christian standards are too demanding, they would say, We got to let your people be free. Let them breathe. Let them live and be human. Oh, how many times have I heard that as pastor? There's this spurious freedom that they're talking about. This freedom that's so suspect. It almost sounds like nilly-willy. You know, Paul had to deal with that in Corinth, I think it was. Should we sin then that grace might abide? Heaven forbid, no, Paul says. There is no license because we have this liberty and this freedom. There's no license to sin. But here, these people are suggesting that to follow Christian principles, to live a principled life is a bit much. And so the Ephesians are told not to be fooled by such futile arguments. Okay, and they're basically prompted to understand that it's the arch deceiver himself. Now that's Paul's language for the Antichrist, the arch deceiver himself. Paul is not hitting at any particular group that might be teaching something wrong, but his indictment includes all of the people in the area, all the propagandists, all the people in the area who make up stuff and try to trap the Christian and he leads you to believe that this is not cool, this is too much, and you're just going over the top. You just bit much. You the most, ain't you? That kind of thing. So, but notice in the text, and this is where I want to draw your attention, having set that scene for you. It is on account of deceitful words that sins that he's talking about, the sin of greed and immorality. It's because because you got people that are telling you that's cool to do. But look where the judgment falls. The judgment does not fall on the deceptive teaching that encourages you to do wrong, but the judgment falls, the divine retribution is on the way for the one who is disobedient. Are you catching what I'm saying? You can have someone teaching you wrong, and if you allow them to deceive you, the judgment falls on you for your disobedience. There's no emphasis there on the one who taught you the wrong thing. It's on you. And then I thought about that. I said, wow, that is so powerful. And I need to make sure that I point that out, because a lot of times, well, he the pastor. He the one telling them they're doing what the pastors say do. Well, Paul is telling these Ephesians, let no one deceive you with empty words. For because of these things, empty words, and you letting people deceive you, the wrath of God comes on those who are disobedient. It's interesting. Therefore, do not associate with them. Now remember, he's already established that we can't be in that environment with the wrong language, the wrong disposition, the wrong attitude. And now he's saying when you're around people who embrace those kinds of understandings, those kinds of dialogue, and you begin to act in the way that you do, the judgment falls on you. The wrath of God comes on those who are disobedient. All too many times in church we want to do the devil made me do it. We want I was influenced, peer pressure. That kind of stuff. And literally, he's holding the Ephesians responsible for the gospel they have heard. We'll get into it. Stay with me. He says, verse 8 says, for once you were darkness. He didn't say you were in darkness. He said once you were darkness. I mentioned last week, I didn't call the author's name, but John Bradshaw, Healing the Shame That Binds You. It's probably out of print by now, but it was a book I used, I had to read in one of my clinical classes. But he suggests an interesting idea that seems to be popping up out of this text here. That when something shameful has happened to us, you were raped, or you were brutalized, you can become toxic in that shame. And rather than having a shameful experience, you become the shame. So now you're the community prostitute and you're the bully in the block, You're in dealing with what has happened to you. You've internalized your shame, and you've become the shame. Interesting clinical notion in terms of mental health, mental wellness. But here is the same concept. He's saying, you remember when you were darkness? He didn't say when you were in darkness. You were darkness. You identified. Now, Mason, I wish I had Mason to help me preach this right here. Mason know what I'm talking about. Come on now. You were darkness. They knew who you were, and you wanted them to know who you were. Okay? You the man. Right? You were darkness. But now in the Lord, you are light. See, and it's that contingency there that puts the responsibility in the one who's in your hands. You know darkness. So how do you let someone deceive you with empty words and afford you to live, to move in darkness? It just doesn't need to be that way. You don't need to let that go down like that. Now it can happen. When I was working with the recovery program, you don't do a 13th step when somebody just been in the program 2 weeks. They get out there trying to help Mother Mary and be done got worse than Mother Mary. Okay? Relapse is a real concept. It's also very much a part of recovery. Okay? But now here in the spiritual arena, Paul says, you ain't got to do that. That's the wrath of God comes on those who are disobedient, because it's not about the behavior per se. It's about obedience or disobedience. The light, we're children of obedience. The dark, we're children of disobedience. So in other words, it's your choices, your decision. And that's why he says, you let no one deceive you. He didn't say pray and ask God to keep folk from deceiving you. No, he didn't. He said let no one. That's an imperative. That puts the responsibility in your hands. Therefore, here's the first. He said what he offers. Don't associate with them. Stay out of slippery places and you won't fall. Okay? He says walk as children of light. This is kind of powerful. Walk as children of light. Verse 7. No, I'm sorry. Verse 8b. To reemphasize, he's unambiguous in verse 7. That's why I'm still stuck there. He's unambiguous in verse 7 about Christians getting mixed up with those who have excluded themselves from the kingdom by their impurity. Got to get me not, you know what I'm saying? I ain't trying to mislead nobody. I'm just trying to get me, and that's your buddy. No, you can't do that. You can't do that in good conscience. Okay? I learned that. I've learned that the hard way. I've learned that so many ways where, I'm just making a light joke. I'm just being silly. But I'm feeding somebody's monster over here, and they think they just falling out all on the floor laughing, and they're on a different level than I am, because I would respond differently in another situation. I'm just being silly, and that's why Paul says there ain't no place for that. And see, it makes really good sense. You got to know who you're around. You got to understand what it means to be light, children of light. Paul will enlarge. Now he kind of stretches this notion out in verse 8 with the contrast between darkness and light. He reminds his readers of what they once were. He's good at doing that. Not only did they live in darkness, he says, they were darkness. All right, so now the B portion, I'm trying to get back where I was. So I wanted to say that about verse 7. Now the B portion of 8, walk as children of light. This is a lifestyle. This is not Holy Ghost, hallelujah. No, this is a lifestyle that is centered around, that not only has Christ is the source of your salvation, but Christ is the orbit of your new life. In him we live, move, and have our being. and that's our consciousness. That's how we live. That's how we move. So we must behave as those who are at home in the light, so to speak. So you've got the children of light standing over against sons of disobedience. Walk as children of light, for the fruit of the light. And this is interesting, verse 9. For the fruit of the light. This is kind of a parenthesis. Fruit of the light is found in all that is good and right and true. Now, in a natural sense, light is known for its effects. But when the light of Christ shines in the lives of believers, it produces benevolence, fairness, and integrity. And those are kind of like general categories that you look at. You know, I watch a lot of people who benevolence. This is a product of the children in light. Benevolence. And it makes sense because the definition of your salvation is God gave, and then Christ gave. So benevolence, you giving, becomes, I mean, it's not an elusive idea at all, okay? I mean, it fits. But we rather shout and speak in tongues and do all that, okay? Tight, and then a sense of integrity. And so these three qualities kind of counteract the dark influence of what is malice and injustice and falsehood. Okay, remember you got the sons of disobedience and the children of light. And the children of light, they're moving and producing as believers. They in their lives, when you're looking at their lives, you see generosity or benevolence, fairness, and integrity. Okay, in the sons of disobedience, what you're going to see is malice and injustice and falsehood. Now, when we talk about the goodness, and I won't get into the Greek, but I will tell you what it means. The Greek the consciousness is an achievement of moral excellence combined with a generous spirit. That's goodness. That's goodness. You're just a good person. Now, let me tell you what the sons of disobedience will do with that. Woo! They'll make you a mark and they'll ride you like a mule. And that's what they do. But that doesn't disturb or give you a counteract for who you are. In him we live, move, and have our being. He's not just the source of our salvation. He is the orbit of our new life. That's so important. And so as children of light, we care more about the light than we do about the scam. Bad people do bad things. Jesus said that at during his ministry. He said, good trees bear good fruit. Bad trees bear bad fruit. Now, good trees don't bear bad, and bad trees don't bear good. Okay? Good trees bear good fruit. Bad trees bear bad fruit. And that dichotomy is so important. So if you are children, if you are in the life of the children in the light, okay, then that's who you are. Yes, that could be happening, that could be happening, that could be happening, but this is happening for you. It's so important. Good righteousness or right. I told you there are three things. Look at the text. It says good and right and true. That's what the fruit of the light is. Well, the righteousness was understood by the Greeks as on a broad spectrum. It's a place to stand. Is what righteousness is. The idea God gives you a place to stand. But on that broad spectrum, among a wide range of meanings, what you have is a kind of truth. And it stands for genuineness and honesty. It moves giving all there is due, taking it to the limit, a place to stand. So you're confident of your place to stand. So you can move in these extremes and in terms of what is righteousness. And among that wide range of meaning comes the next one, truth. That's just about genuine honesty. Genuineness and honesty. You'd be surprised if you're around the sons of disobedience. Could not be honest to save their lives. You know? And I don't know why this keep happening in my life. Because of your decisions. You don't know why that happened? They just jumped up and happened. And they live like that. They totally disconnected from the consequences of their decision making or their behavior. No truth anchoring them. Nothing. No honesty. They would rather tell you a half a lie than the whole truth to say the lie. They would not tell you you're not going to get the whole truth. You need 5 people to get the truth from what they've said. Put 5 people together that he's talked to, or they've talked to, and you might get the truth out of all 5 of y'all. Because the truth is what I needed to be to get what I want. No rooting, none of that. That's the sons of disobedience. That's not who you running with. You know? Because you're still, well, I didn't say nothing about that part, but, you know, I just told this. And then you doing it. Justifying doing it. No, I ain't say nothing about that night. Come on, you know you see yourself do that. Now, I didn't see no reason to say all that now. But all that shapes the truth. Paul calls that black magic, witchcraft, where you're shaping people's reality by your desire, what you want them to see. Sons of disobedience. The harvest of light is found not only in all these qualities in balance, held in balance, the good and right and true held in balance, but it's well-rounded in every aspect, has its own elements of dimensions of light. You know, it's not, you got to keep everything in balance, but you got to really be real meticulous. A good person is a good person. Being a good person has got to matter. Now, right out of that, he says, try to find out what is pleasing to the Lord. And that's why verse 10 comes out because if you are looking at every aspect, every element of good, of what is good and right and true, then you're constantly seeking what pleases the Lord. You know, that's how you're trying to live. You're going to, he's making a fool out of you. That might be true. To you, son of disobedience. I'm in the light. I'm a child of light. I mean, you can hear people. So you just, that's just stupid. See, don't let folk like that get you going now. You try to prove you ain't stupid, and the wrath of God comes for you. Now here's a part here that I think is really, 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 really interesting. Verse 11 says, "Take no part in the unfruitful works of darkness, rather expose them." Now, this teaching is kind of bouncing off of verse 8 in the early goings. Let me see if I can find verse 8, what it says in verse 8 right quick. See if I can get a read out on that, because I want you to get it. "For ye were once darkness, but are now light in the Lord. Walk as children of light." Okay? So now given that consciousness, walking as children of light. Now you know that God that takes care of our language, all kind of bizarre behaviors, all the silliness and obscurity. We're in the light, so all that is there, right? And there's some things, remember, there's just some things we just don't even talk about. We don't even mention it. It's just not good to mention. Remember that? Okay, let's go back. Let's go back, because I want you to remember that. That's important. Go back there. There's some things you just don't say nothing about it. There it is. But sexual immorality and impurity of any kind or greed must not even be mentioned among us, as it is proper among the saints. We don't talk about stuff like that. Now, there's your parameter. Now look what he says at 11, which is so fascinating. He says, take no part in the unfruitful works of darkness. Rather, expose them. Now, you got to pay close attention. Okay? He wants you to be finding out in verse 10 what is pleasing to the Lord. That's your focus. Light. Finding out what is pleasing to the Lord. And so you don't take any interest or any part in unfruitful works of darkness. Rather, you expose them. And the verb expose, this is where we get in trouble. Lord, help us, Jesus. There are people who have ministries. They just restructured their ministries, and their job is to expose the false teachers, expose, and that's they think that's their calling. You know, you got to expose them. The Bible says you got to expose them. You know, the Bible said that. Listen to what Paul is talking about when he's talking about exposing. If you can't participate in any of the darkness, unfruitful works of darkness, how do you expose darkness? By being in the light. Ain't got no help in here. See, it's shameful to even mention what such people secretly do. He says that. So you run around, let me just say this. If you so holy, then why there you go. You see what I'm saying? See what you're doing? You're trying to go there. And you try to, and let me tell you something. Can I tell you something? I'm going to tell you something. I love the Lord with all my heart. But there are some things you will never know. I promise you. There are the secret place. Can somebody say a word on the secret place? Who among you does not have that secret place where you've done some things you would never want nobody to know you did them? Oh Lord, you would lie. Talk about the sons of disobedience. Oh my goodness, you just lose your mind. We all have that. And Paul says we don't even talk about it. We don't even mention it. We're in the light. We don't mention it. We're children of light. We don't get that. We ain't in there. So why are you trying to point out what Lulabelle is doing? Why are you raising your hand in the Bible study? Why are you doing testimony, sir? Why you want to tell somebody? Preachers really get me with this. They stand in the pulpit and they think that the pulpit is a place where they can stand and openly and blatantly condemn people for things that they have done. And they kind of guessing. Some of them know because they did it with them. But they be kind of guessing, speculating. It's like, what are you doing? That's not our job. Christ said, I didn't come into the world to condemn the world, but that the world through me might be saved. And if he is our lamb, if he is our pulpit, then how can we stand in his church and do what he wouldn't do? That's coming on the day of the Lord. Until then, we give people a more perfect way. We shine light, and that exposes darkness. That's important. You don't sit around critiquing how people live. You live, and your light will expose. Look what it says. For it is shameful even to mention what such people do secretly, but everything exposed by the light becomes visible. If you live in something, live it. And I promise you, they'll leave you alone. They'll walk away from you. They'll resent you. They'll reject you because you're exposing. I tell you, here's a good scenario. I never will forget this. when I used to get high all the time, I had my get high buddies, my boys, everybody got their boys. And the moment I started thinking about recovering, and my mind wasn't clear, and I needed my mind, and I started talking like that, the light was coming on. I ain't got no help in here. And those who were the sons of disobedience, oh man, you ain't no addict. Everybody do something. Everybody get high with something. There's that empty counsel, them empty words. Everybody get high on something. Something you gonna get a buzz. I'm telling you that now. You gonna get a buzz. No. Everybody don't get high. Everybody don't pack guns. Everybody don't tell lies. Everybody. You're a lie, Satan. That's just not true. That's a distortion. I used to believe a cigarette calmed my nerves. Nicotine excites the central nervous system. No way it's calming your nerve. But it's a distortion to you because you're addicted. I can drink a whole fifth and don't feel, man, you can't even tell that. You a lie. Alcohol is a central nervous system depressant drug. The moment it hits your system, it depresses your central nervous system. It's a distortion. Please help me. And that kind of light exposes. That's what Paul is talking about. Everything becomes visible when the light is present. If you're children of the light and you're walking in that light and living in that light, you don't have to point out what people are doing wrong. As a matter of fact, that's the last thing that you want to do. Because you have no share in the deeds of darkness, verse 11. You're not involved. So why would you be involved with the language? Why you want to discuss it? Why are you trying to be over in it? Your conversation is different. Now I'm not talking about the Pharisaic separatism that they used to do. They didn't hang around unclean. I ain't talking about that. Okay, I'm not talking about you so holy. No, I'm talking about non-participation. Jesus went places that the Pharisees thought unseasonable. He went into the tax collector's house, sat at the table at lunch with a bunch of sinners. Just because you're around people who are moving in that way does not mean that you're participating. The point I'm trying to make is you got to be the light when you're around them. You can't go dim and not be a light. Oftentimes when I'm in the crowd and if there's people that want me around and they go, excuse me, Rev, excuse me. No, hold up. You be you. Be who you are. I grew up a certain way. I understand language you think I don't understand. You obviously don't think I understand. You don't think I know what that is, what you just said. I know a whole lot about that. Okay? And then when they start realizing that you really are about them and not about their language or about their antics and their behaviors, that's light. That's light. But the first thing we want to do when we come into our relationship is we want to start censoring everybody around us. And I'll tell you in a minute, excuse me, Red, you ain't showing me no respect when you do that. That's not any respect. That's about you. Because I'm not clutching the pearls when you say what you say. I promise you, say it and see what happens. Because it's language. And I'm a communications major, so it's language. I'm trying to figure out what you mean. Okay, I'm trying to be up on the idiom. What does this mean when you say these words? Because that's not my world, and I'll admit I don't know what you mean. What do you mean by that? When you say that, what does that mean? And then after you tell me what it means, then I'm good to go. You communicating. Because you have a message and I have one too. So trying to correct people, and when he talks about expose them, he's not talking about the people. He's talking about expose the works of darkness. Not them, the works of darkness. Look at your text. Take no part in it, but expose them. How do you do that? Shine a light on it. Whose light? Yours. No, man, that's okay. I don't drink. It was so funny. I went across the street. Go on in and get you something. No, thank you. I've had that life. You know, I know I don't do that. Oh, come on now. Everybody. They go, why are you doing that? You want to see the preacher get drunk? Well, you're going to have to find another preacher. But I see how drunk you are. You know, and the lab is on and we talk. You know, the idea of exposing them is people got ministries around trying to expose false teachers. Paul told Titus, don't get involved with that. They'll change the rules on you. You'll never win. Just study to show yourself approved. Yourself approved. A workman that need not be ashamed. Rightly, you do this. That's the light. So that the people that you are pastoring, if you will, so the shepherd that you are, the people that you are in charge of at the church, they're not going to and fro after every doctrine come through. They're stable because you've shown them sound doctrine. And the light is fixed. And you don't have to be ashamed. Half your members going here, half going there, and then they come back to church and you looking silly, because they're all over the place. Because you're too busy criticizing and judging and not preaching sound doctrine, shining the light. I've said that 1,000 times. And preachers simply don't get it. For everything that becomes visible is light. That's so important that you understand that. The fruit of the light is our concern. We produce the fruit of the light, and darkness is sterile, and the light reveals that. Truth. So far from participating with them, believers expose these practices, these mindsets. Man, I gotta have a joint, man. I need to calm my nerves. That's not the effect of cannabis on the central nervous system. You know that, don't you? You're smoking a hallucinogenic drug, slowing down time and messing with what you do see. So this is this distinctive work of the Spirit is what I'm talking about. Those of you who are children of light, you understand the work of the Spirit, His distinctive work. And that's who you are. Your goodness and your truth and your righteousness is a vehicle for His Spirit to take on His distinctive move and do what He does. Pretty powerful, I think. This exposure, let me just say it straight out, it is not affected by what is actually said. I rebuke you, and I rebuke you, rebuking saints. They just jealous because they ain't doing it or they still doing it and trying to compensate for the fact that I rebuke you. Who is you? What you mean you rebuke? Who? You? You look like a rebuke yourself. Because I rebuke you. These deeds, these things you do, I rebuke you. No. That That's not what he means by expose. And he even says they're so repulsive, you can't even whisper about them. Don't even talk about it. Now look at the box he got you in. See what I'm saying? I love this. I think this is exciting. We can't even mention something that is just, Lord, the way you can't even mention it. And certainly rebuking, you drawing attention. No. That ain't how you expose. You live righteous. You live good. You live in truth. That's the light. And that shines and exposes. Letting the light of Christ shine. That's what exposes the darkness. And we're left with loving broken people. And that's our calling. To bring into view the broken people a more perfect way. See it, verse. Let me see if I missed anything. Yeah. Be sure, Paul, he reiterates verse 12, the insistence from verse 3 that the things that the pagans propagate, what they do undercover, secretly, don't be breathing at them and say, you know what they say, you know what they say you do. You ain't heard about it. Good, let me tell you. Now what they say is, now, I ain't one to gossip, but what they say is, be quiet. Where's your light? Where's your memory? You don't remember when they used to call you folk skin? You don't remember when you were far away? And now that Christ has brought you near, don't even mention it. Live the life. Be bright, be smart, be wise. And that's interesting that I would say be wise, because in the next sequence in this discussion, he shifts the theme again from wisdom to foolishness. Okay? A life of love, a life in the light, and then a life of wisdom. We'll get to that. Here's something that's interesting that I picked up on. Therefore it says, what is it? What is the it there? Interesting. It's like a metrics, a metrical triplet in music. A rhythm that has a specifically associated pattern. Paul quotes something. He says something, and it's not scripture. Therefore, it says. And that it is a reference to a non-canonical writing that Paul believes is truthful and helpful. Sleep or awake, rise from the dead, and Christ will shine on you. It's not a direct quote from Scripture, but it contains the echoes of Isaiah 60, verse 1, 9, verse and 2, 26 and 19. It's just, you gotta listen to what he's really actually trying to get at when he makes this statement. It's kind of like a hymn, a credo statement that the church used, or that they use a baptismal hymnal, a hymn thing before they baptize, and because there was such a closeness to baptism and resurrection, so it was that kind of baptismal hymn that was based out of Isaiah that was said, and Paul he grabs the kind of the hymnody of it all, and he puts that statement in there, a kind of liturgical address. He simply is awakening darkness is sterile and it's empty, and he's trying to awaken. He's trying to bring you into the light. Christ will shine on you. He's still trying to do that dark light thing, darkness and light. Trying to suggest, come see a new way to live. See to it that you live in the light. Okay. Technically, Paul is arguing that we live a concentrated life where our life is irreproachable. That's a powerful thing to say, that we live our lives where we are above reproach, irreproachable. We ain't the one that's doing the darkness. This it's very challenging. This metaphorical contrast between light and darkness will shift at this point now, at verse 15. And so we'll stop right there, but I kind of want you to kind of go back now and reflect on as much of what I've said to you as you possibly can, because I've said a lot in these few verses, but I want you to really grapple with the practical application of the biblical doctrine that Paul has been teaching. Because we have a tendency, Paul is teaching what Christ taught. Paul's teaching is undergirded by Christ. He's putting into action what Christ taught the apostles, what he was taught. This is important. And you got to understand this. Now, if you were to take all that I'm saying to you and go back to the ministry of Jesus Christ, you find it there. Paul is the man who gives us a sense of how to serve the risen Lord, the risen Savior. How do we implement? How do we bring Christ back? How do we bring him back on the scene? His teachings. He lives. How does he live? His teachings. It's not the meandering of truth about the resurrection. It is a visible contact with him. He's the source of our salvation, and he's the orbit of our new life. He lives. We'll get to the next section, and we'll finish this thing. But I hope I'm. Last week, this week, 4:1 through 6. I hope it causes you to really focus and really do some thinking, and just for your reading pleasure, it'd be good just to read 4:1 to 6. I think it's 6:20. I think is what I said. Just read. And if you're ahead of me, that's fine. I'll be there. Okay, but walk with me now and get a clear understanding. I hope that you'll stop now trying to be the one who is called to expose and be the one who is called to live that exposure might take place. Okay, God bless your hearts. We'll see you next time out.
It seems that our time has come and gone for this study. I trust that we've said something to inspire you, something to tamper with the way that you understand things, to keep you off balance, so that you'll always be desirous of new insights and enlightenment, that your faith might grow rapidly, that you might become stronger saints. Listen, why don't you consider subscribing to our ministry? Remember, if you should do so, to ring the bell so that you can get the notification that the book is open every time we open it. If you'd like to be a supporter of our ministry financially, we're providing the information for you so that you might be able to share out of your blessings. We thank you so much now, and we look forward to seeing you again at our very next study.